Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Atolagbe, and in today's video we're going to be making this gorgeous wide-legged jumpsuit with asymmetrical bodice and ruched sleeves. I will be using basic bodice and trouser patterns that I made in a previous video from existing clothes, so I strongly recommend that you spare some minutes to watch that video if you do not have a basic pattern. It's extremely easy to follow for a beginner, and it will be linked in the top right corner of my screen, and I literally just display the patterns. I'm going to start with my trouser front. I will raise the side seam by a whole 2.5 centimeters. This must be done because otherwise we're going to end up with a jumpsuit that's uncomfortable to wear around the crotch area. Trust me, I know because I've done it before. Next, I will make up the side seam to reach this new line and go on to transfer this pattern along with its darts, its pockets, its side seams onto my paper. However, when I get to the hip, for the legs, I'm going to square down the leg from the hip because I'm making wide-legged pants, and this is how to make wide-legged pants. So I'm going to just increase the length because I need this to be literally touching the ground even when I'm wearing heels. Just make a length that's way longer than you need, and you can adjust to your preference much later when you try it on. I also square down the inseam from the crotch, right? And now I'm going to remove the basic trouser pattern here, and so that I can draw on the parts, and now it look like this. I moved on to my bodice and carefully placed it such that the seam allowance at my trouser center front was left to hang out, using my ruler as a guide. Okay, so this makes it extend beyond the trouser part at the side seam, but I'll blend that in later. Next thing I'll do is to make the trouser darts match the bodice darts. Blend the side seam to the bodice and erase the trouser line so that I can keep the bodice waistline. Now I'm going to cut out the trouser pattern, and this is my jumpsuit trouser front. Everything I've done with the front, I repeat with the back. Increase the length by 2.5 centimeters, square out the legs from the hip and inseam, and then match the bodice to the back pattern. Now, my bodice is asymmetrical, meaning either side is different. So for my front bodice, I folded paper in two and used a tracing wheel to transfer my pattern onto it. I like to only trace wheel the pivotal points like corners and curves and dots and dot tips and all of that, and not like the entire pattern. I'd use my pattern master or really any tool you prefer and pencil to connect what I've traced, and then I'll cut it out. Now I'm going to draft my neckline like this. I can't say I measured anything, just letting my pencil simply glide and vibes. Then I use my pattern master to make my lines finer. After this, I'm going to pick up my back bodice, which as you can see, I already copied two of it with their zipper allowances folded in. Like I already mentioned, if you want to see how I made these basic patterns from clothes that I already own, check out a video that I'm going to link in the top right corner of the screen and also in the description bar. So I put them together, I taped them down, I placed the front bodies on top of them, and then I'm going to cut the neck I already drafted on the front bodice. Asymmetrical, you guys. I figured I didn't need this slight curve on the back, so I got rid of it just by connecting a straight line to the side seam. I wanted to avoid gaping at my breast area in my dress, and that's why I created a 1 centimeter wide dart there. It turned out this was not enough at all, and I needed to eliminate much more later while sewing. I'll show you how I did that while sewing, like literally on the fabric, so stick around. You want to fold that in, and you want to blend the neck back in with another paper, and you want to stash open this waist dart so that I can transfer the closed up bit there and allow the pattern to lay flat. I'm going to cover up the exposed space with paper. Now, as you can see, my bodice has a band at the waist. The band is 4 centimeters wide on each of the front and the back, so I'm going to remove that. Now moving on to pockets. We all have a dream pocket but for my own, just transfer the side seam and waistline of the front pants that you already made to the desired length and breadth, like how long you want the pocket to be and how wide you want it to be into your waist, right? And I'm just going to remove this paper and draft the pocket now. Yeah, it's important to copy the pocket opening as well. Okay, now speaking of this drafting, this shape that I just did, I eventually changed it to something that's more pouchy when cutting the fabric. This is all I'm going to draft for the pocket. I'll show you how I use just this for my entire pocket, both of those pieces that face themselves. All my pieces look like this right now. I proceeded to cut the fabric and they look like this as well. Of course, in cutting the front trouser fabric, I have to cut out the pocket opening and continue with all else as normal. And in cutting the pocket pieces, I changed the shape because, like I said earlier, this has a deeper pouch and it's better able to keep something safe as a pocket should. Literally cut 2 more pieces. And now that I have 4, 2 of them are going to have the pocket opening to match the trouser. Okay, now you want to pair the pieces up like this and make them lay right sides facing. Now I'm moving on to sewing. I have 2 sets of this bodice. I'd sewn the darts. 1 set will serve as the lining, and you may not see it, but I already fused interfacing on this one and it's going to be the lining. And this other set is not interfaced, so it would be the part that's on the outside. So you want to run straight stitches through the shoulders and the sides of the 2 sets. They each look like this. To make my band, I measure the span of the entire waist at this point. It's about 26 inches for me. I cut out 2 strips of fabric of this length plus seam allowance, right? And that are also 6 centimeters wide. I fused interfacing to 1 and I pinned them together and I went on to stitch them to the bodice. Meanwhile, if you're finding this video valuable, make sure that you subscribe for more content like this and like my video and watch my other videos as well. Moving on to my pockets, time to sew them. Remember, they're right sides facing, so you want to flip them over so that they are wrong sides facing, and you want to run a straight stitch through like the sides, that's this pouchy side, and also the bottom of the stuff. After which I'm going to flip them over again and I'm going to sew over it. At this point, I'll stitch them to my front pants and just pin them down so that they may lay nice and flat and I can continue my work without disturbances. To truly have them lay nice and flat, you must have top stitched the inside. So now my front is looking like this. Next up, and to my back trouser, measure the depth of your zipper and zipper allowance. I like to gradually taper the allowance as I move towards the crotch and stitch on it. Again, leave some centimeters for stitching to the front trouser. Time to connect them together at the side seams and then at the inseams and then at the crotch, in that order. Next up, I'm going to connect to the bodice, making sure that my darts are aligned. This is a very important thing for me, And after this, I'm going to just turn this over and I'm going to install the zipper. Now remember when I said that 1 centimeter was not enough? Yeah, not nearly. So the way to know how much you need to get rid of here is by wearing it on yourself for a body form and literally holding the excess fabric with your hands like this and marking this excess fabric. I'm going to loosen the tip of my dart only just a little bit, and I'm using a blade because my seam ripper is missing. Now I'm going to just turn this over to the wrong side and use my pattern master to make inward curves ending at the dart tip. If you draw a straight line, it could work, but it's not going to be flattering. You want to create a mound of sorts so that the breast can naturally sit into it. So I go on to stitch on this curve. I'm sorry that it's not in focus, but I hope that you can tell that I gradually blend it into the existing dots, right? And now when I turn it over, you can actually see that the curve is prominent. I also had done the very same with the lining, and now I'm just spinning them together, right sides facing, and then I would stitch along the length of the neck, after which I would then understitch as I usually do. Understitch the neck so that it lays nice and flat on the inside. Time for boning, everyone. I used Ridgeline boning and without casings. Those tapings that you can see at the tips are so that my boning does not poke. I inserted boning about 2 inches away from each zipper side. I inserted at each back neck or neck back. You can see how much that reinforces the neck. When I actually turn this over to the right side, it just makes it firm and just upholds the outfit. I also installed at the side seams and also at the 2 dots at this time. I eventually go on to remove the boning that I placed at this taller side because it was uncomfortable and I really could not justify why I needed it. Next up, I'm going to close up my zipper allowance by folding it over and just stitching. I like to stitch as close to the seam that is already in place as I can. When I flip this over to the right side, it looks like this. You really want to make sure that you get rid of the bulk on the wrong side. So I also like to hand hem my lining to my dress just so that I don't have it moving all over the place, just at a few points. And now to my sleeves. I folded 2 yards of chiffon in 2 and then folded again on the bias. You can see that, right? My sleeve is 51 inches long. My hands are 25 inches long, by the way, so that's about twice the length of my hands, right? I'm just drawing a line to represent that from the bottom. Now I'm measuring 6.5 inches as where my armhole ends. I always do between 5.5 inches and 6.5 inches. I'll pick up my jumpsuit, measure the circumference of my armhole. It's about 16.5 inches, right? And I'm gonna keep that. Then I'll draw a line that's 2 centimeters in from the outer arm. This is where I'll install my drawstrings, right? So I'll draft the sleeve cap to look like this. Again, another freehand thing. Okay, I actually go on to make it deep a little bit more here. The reason that I'm measuring is I want to make sure that this has enough in it to cover seam allowances, the armhole of the jumpsuit, and extra fabric to create ease, as well as allowance for my drawstring. Cut this whole thing out and slash the drawstring side. Now sleeve is looking like this right now. Now I'm going to pick up 2 out of the 4 pieces that I have, and I'm going to cut off the sleeve caps on them. This will be the sleeve for the side without an armhole. My drawstrings are 4 centimeters wide and 35 inches long. Back to my sleeve, you want to stitch the side seam and top stitch the hem before stitching the side with the drawstrings. As you can see, I already finished the hem by top stitching it, and it's after then that I'm going to literally stitch the drawstring side on a 1-inch seam allowance. I'm going to top stitch the seam allowance in this manner to create channels for my bonings. The next thing is fairly obvious, inserting the drawstrings that I've now made. Then I'm going to run gathers through my sleeve cap, and I'm going to basically stitch it to my jumpsuit. For the side without an armhole, I measured 8 inches long elastic. I inserted it into the top of the sleeve and I stitched it in 2 places to the side seam of my jumpsuit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the video. I hope you found value in this video. If you do, again and again, subscribe to my channel, share this video, like it, watch my other videos, engage with it, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.